Welcome back, everybody, to the CoachNoah podcast. I'm here with a really good friend of mine, Marlene, and we are here to chat about mindset, community, and everything in between. Marlene is an old friend of mine from my Nike times, and I'm really excited to dig in and learn a little bit about where you came from, what you do, and where your journey is going. And let's just start by saying welcome to the podcast, Marlene. How are you doing?
Thank you, Noah. Thank you for having me. Super excited to be here. I'm very well and just glad to be here.
So, you are one of my yogi master friends, and before we get into like the dirty details of that, I just want to kind of jump back a little bit into your past and see where are you from and was it always a sporty background?
So my past is not that exciting, honestly, because I'm coming from a small town in Germany. So very, very boring childhood, so to say, but also very beautiful childhood. But sport was always a big part of my life. I was doing gymnastics in my basically youth and teenage years. I also was a trainer in rhythmic gymnastics, and that's where I first got to know about yoga because my trainer basically introduced us to some yoga techniques to increase our flexibility. So it was very a physical goal, but yeah, that's where I got the first taste of yoga.
And how old were you when you started gymnastics?
Oh my god, I started with 3, so
3
really
years
young.
old. How so? Like
Yes.
with Kita and all that, and
Yeah, in Germany it's kind of normal that you put your children into sport programs, and my parents thought gymnastics is a good way to, make me, I don't know, fit and flexible, I guess.
do you agree? Do you agree?
No, honestly, I think it's a great sport. I had a lot of fun as a child, and I don't regret, or I'm not mad at my parents at all.
For making you go. The reason I ask is
Yeah.
because I mean, I've got kids now, and I'm like, oh, how early do I start like pushing her into going into sports or pushing her at all? And I'm learning that it's actually easiest for her to decide, but kind of give hints and let her test the waters in all sorts of places. But gymnastics is one of my favorites because you move in all directions. You use your body to do the coolest things. You have grip strength. You do tumbling, and you were in rhythmic gymnastics.
Yeah, so the first time, when I was started, I was in regular gymnastics just for children. And then there was a time around 7, I think, where your trainer decides like where your career is supposed to go. And I was always very anxious, so I would be super afraid of the like heights and like jumping
Ah,
crazy, about obstacles and stuff like that. So my trainer was like, "You better stay on the ground, girl, and you do rhythmic gymnastics," which is a little bit less frightening and a
yeah.
bit more focused on flexibility and like dance elements. So yeah,
Okay.
that's where my trainer decided that this would be my path, and yeah, that's where I went.
I think you're pretty long and tall, anyways, for the typical gymnast. So, like being
Yeah,
up on the balance beam and like
yeah,
parallel bars, you have a longer lever to move than most of those short, strong, stocky gymnasts. So, I guess that's
yeah.
probably where the old East style training of picking kids based on their genetics to go into certain directions actually kind of works out for
Yeah,
people. In
yeah,
a
true.
way, to be a high performance athlete, I think genetics play a big role into it, anyways. But that's a whole nother topic that we could probably talk about, but not today. And so, when did I guess you said with your training in gymnastics, you were introduced to yoga, but was there a point, or do you remember a time when it actually became a love?
Yeah, so definitely not in my teenage years. I didn't love it at all. But once I stopped with competitive sports and moved away from my hometown, I had to kind of find a sport for myself to, I don't know, just keep my body moving. And I didn't want to do rhythmic gymnastics anymore because at a certain age I didn't feel comfortable with it anymore, or I didn't love it that much anymore. So yeah, I found hot yoga in Munich, and that's where I got kind of hooked. I loved that it was very sweaty, but also really working on my flexibility, and I was just naturally good at it, which made it just more enjoyable, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Instead of like me when your joints creak and you can't touch your toes and.
Yeah, it definitely is a bit harder then.
Yeah. But it's so much nicer when you finally get to a point when you're touching your toes and stuff. But I've ever since we met, which I guess was, when did that first start? 2017? I was talking to Den the other day and I was like, when did the NTC big thing start, and where we had yoga, dance, running, strength, calisthenics. Do you remember what year that was?
So I joined the team 2018.
Okay.
I don't know. You were there already?
Yeah.
I think so. And I think that was when it got really a nice momentum and it became bigger. Yeah.
And you were already pretty deep into your yoga world at that point, right?
Honestly, no. So I was
really?
also super surprised that Nike wanted to work with me, because I felt more like, fuck, I'm not ready at all and I'm such a beginner. But I mean, I started already with Yoga on the Move, and I think they liked the community that we had built at that point in time, and that's why they reached out, I think, because they just liked the mission and whatever I was creating in that community way.
At that point, so for everybody watching, Marlene started this community called Yoga on the Move, and that's one of the main reasons why I want to talk to you today, because it's kind of like, for me at least, a Vorbild. What is that in English? It's an idol, something to look up to, because you started it before community building was cool, I guess. And now community building is like on every corner, at least in Berlin, people are starting something new. And you kind of paved the way for doing something outside of the box, I think, which is really cool, because you didn't have a space at first. Yeah. And so can you tell me and everybody else a little bit how it started and where it started?
So basically it all started in India, where I was doing my first teacher training 2017. I was a bit lost at that time in my life, so I had nothing better to do than going to India, traveling and taking a yoga teacher training. And there I really fell deeply in love with the practice beyond all the physical benefits that it had on me before that time. And I was feeling, because we were living for 1 month in a really tight space with 40 people, and I was feeling really like I'm living with a new family, or it was really a nice vibe in that whole yoga community, so to say. And I was like, well, my friends definitely, I want them to experience the same thing without having to travel to India. And I never had like the vision of creating a brand or creating a company or creating a yoga studio, but I rather just wanted to pass on basically the feeling of being with like-minded people, but not even like-minded people, but just in a community where there's total acceptance and non-judgment, and you can just kind of have fun together and do sports and move your body, breathe, and all of that. So that's how I started, because when I came back to Berlin, I tried to obviously teach at different yoga studios, but they didn't want me because I had no experience.
Oh, that's the worst in the beginning, because people are like, you need 2 years of experience, and that's everywhere, and you're like, where the hell am I supposed to get experience if I can't start anywhere? It's in every job, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like it's a curse, but at the same time a blessing, because it makes you do your own stuff. Or I think with problems like this or limitations, you have to find creative solutions, and then I at least started Yoga on the Move, which I would have never done probably if I would just have gotten a studio job right away. That was the good thing about it.
From like my perspective, you're saying exactly that. When you have a place, like I was personal training in 3 different studios, making just enough money to like make things work, pay the bills, have a little bit of fun, like life work balance, I guess you could call it. And it's this like scary moment, like how am I supposed to spend time building something if that takes time away from making money? And when you have to pay bills, you're living on your own, you're not at home, you're in the big Berlin city. So I guess that's really, that's exactly right. And so how did it develop? Was it slow? Was it like bam? And
very, very gradual, but we also didn't have any expectations. I'm saying we because I started the whole thing with my friend Leonie. We met initially in India and then we became friends, and she was from Berlin also. So it was kind of natural that we would like work together. And then we thought of something that wasn't there at this time. We wanted to do yoga for everybody and make it very inclusive. That's why we decided to make it in open spaces, so spaces that have nothing to do with yoga, to make it, attractive for people that would not naturally stumble into a yoga studio. And also we did donation-based classes in the beginning because we didn't feel comfortable to charge, plus we wanted to make it very inclusive. And that's how it really got popular. Back in the days, we still used Facebook for our marketing channel, and we were posting in like university groups, student forums, and just kind of promoting that we were doing yoga on donation basis in the park. And people loved it, and they joined, and the groups grew. And there was a time when German fall arrived, where we could not do it in the park anymore. And then we started to find indoor locations and still doing everything on donation. So we had to find cheap spaces, but it somehow worked out. And we were really able to grow the community until the point where the classes were so packed and crowded that we had to charge money because it was just getting a little bit too much of people. So that's when we started to implement our fixed prices, still keeping them very fair and on a sliding scale. But that way we had a bit of a high income, and then we also had to obviously make everything very official. We founded a GbR.
Oh my gosh!
And then the whole process started of like, oh, this is a real thing.
And now you have your own studio, and you even, I don't want to get into it yet, but I definitely want to hear about the teacher training that you're also offering now. So that's because this podcast for me is not only just to talk and catch up, but it's also kind of a way for me to learn from these inspiring people around me that are doing things that I look up to and that I might actually want to try myself. And so eventually I want to get to talking about that as well. But there's something that, like a side step to Yoga on the Move, because for me, like, you've seen me over the past, I guess, 6 years or so, and my journey has been like all over the place, running, breathing, ice bath, and then trying to figure out a way to bring that all back together. And I guess the question I have for you is, yoga is like, it's a very wide-ranged practice. People don't actually know you can do so many different things with yoga. And I want to know, has your practice evolved, or has your relationship evolved over the years with yoga? Can you elaborate on that?
100%. I think it's also a way of being human. I think we always, no matter what you do, you go through this constant process of changing, adapting, and recalibrating. And for me, it was like, as I said, the beginning was very physical. I loved the stretching part, I loved the sweating part, and the whole physical benefits that I felt from it. Then I went through the phase where I went to India and I got almost brainwashed. No, not brainwashed, it's a bit harsh, but
no, I've heard this before. You don't have to sugarcoat it. I've heard.
I mean, when I came,
I know a girlfriend of mine went to yoga, and like she brought back like pictures of the guru that was running the monastery that she was at and like had it all over her walls. All of a sudden, I was like, what did they do down there? But it is such a, it can be such a magical and like evolving, adapting experience that can change your life course. And so those people that are making those impacts should probably stick around a little bit at least.
Yeah, I mean, I was never into like a specific guru or a specific teacher like obsessively, but I really resonated with the yoga philosophy, which is a really ancient tradition, and I resonated a lot with what they say how to live life. And when I came back from my teacher training, I wanted to live my life like this, but obviously life in Berlin city is completely different than living a yogi lifestyle somewhere on a mountain in India. Yeah. So the first year, I think, especially for my boyfriend back in time, was really, really hard for him to like see me being really radical, like being vegan, not drinking, really prioritizing, waking up in the morning really early, meditating, and going through this whole more spiritual process. Yeah, but I think over time I got again a bit more soft and a little bit more not so harsh with myself, because there was a time where I was really hard with myself on like sticking like persistently to the rules of the practice. And I think over time I stepped more also into the teacher role. Obviously I always consider myself also as a student. And with that comes also a big responsibility that, first of all, you know your stuff, but second of all, that you live by example, and that you practice what you preach, so to say. So I think that was like the majority of my path in the last few years, where I really wanted to live my life aligned with the yoga philosophy, so that I can share it in an authentic way, that it's not just like something I read somewhere, but something that I'm actually living. So,
that's really, really actually moving for me, because I totally get it. When I went on my journey into the Wim Hof method, it's also full of like very spiritual and hardcore people, and the ways that you're supposed to do things it's not as rigid as yoga, I would say, but it has its like boundaries. And then like I also brought that back to my house, and like
how was that?
Very, very interesting. I think I did the podcast with Kim a few weeks ago and learned through the podcast and through talking about it how intense it can be, because for me it's like, let's go, this is just how we should be living, and having a partner that balances me out a little bit is actually quite nice, because I think going down that road was taking me someplace I didn't want to be. So it's but this is not about me, this is about you, and I want to know, so going back a little bit into yoga on the move, when did that process from going from like outdoor events, before I get there, what did you do with rain and weather? Like, did you have to cancel sessions, or did you just do it? Because I know building a community and building it wasn't your goal, but sort of having a reliable practice and people saying, you're going to be there when you say you're going to be there is important. So how did you deal with that when you didn't have a space?
Yeah, it's definitely a struggle. Well, when there was like a thunderstorm and rain all day in the forecast, we would cancel as far in advance as possible so people can plan accordingly. Of course, there were times when we didn't manage to like know exactly what the weather will be like, so we always try to rather think that it will happen than think it won't happen. And sometimes we did like yoga in very light rain, but if it's raining more than just very lightly, then we would cancel. And usually people were very understanding. Obviously they didn't have to pay.
Exactly. When it's donation
everybody
based.
Understands. And everybody understands that with the weather you can't really do anything about it.
Yeah, especially in Berlin, sometimes it comes out of nowhere. and
Yeah.
like doing yoga, and I'm trying to imagine what it would be like in the rain, and like I feel like the mats would get slippery and you just couldn't
Yeah.
really hold. I think it'd be really cool to do it in the rain, but it might get cold, and I have this majestic like dancing in the rain style
Yeah.
imagery in my mind right now, but it would probably look much differently in real life.
Probably.
And so you that did it all, it couldn't have happened all in one year, right? So when it warmed back up, you would go back outside, and you did you have different parks you would do it in, or was it always at the same place?
So when we started 2017, we were always at that one park, and then we
Was
started
it
the
Schiller
same.
Park?
No, Tempelverfeld.
Ah, you were down there. Okay. Yeah. I
Yeah,
swear I thought
back
you were
in
up in
the
Wedding.
Well, we have locations there later, but at that time when we started, it was still allowed in Tempelhof, and we were able to do it there. And then we moved right away into indoor locations the same fall, 2017. Yeah, I think that was also important because we had built up a certain momentum throughout summer, and I don't know, if you pause it through the entire winter, it just loses its momentum, and people forget about you or find alternative trainers, alternative groups to practice. So we kind of kept our community and took them with us into indoor locations, which was, I think, smart.
Definitely. And then I feel like it was only a year or two ago when you got your own location, right?
That was 2020. So we
Gosh.
started.
True. Yeah, I
Time
remember
flies.
because you were one of the quickest to go online, and you were doing online classes, and you were using I don't remember which platform that was, but it was one of the first like really good It wasn't just Zoom workouts; it was something else, right?
Well, we have our own platform on our website where you can book like on-demand classes, but the most of the streams we do via Zoom. So it was actually not that special, but we were, I think, one of the first that moved online because we had to, because we just signed our contract for the big studio.
I can't even imagine. It's so crazy. I think here's where you like put a heart out to the community for sticking with you in that time, because that's like, oh my gosh, I would have a heart attack. I'm sure you guys y'all had your moments of fear, but you made it through, and now it's going, from what it looks like from the outside, really well. You have your studio, and then I want to maybe transition now into how you got. I mean, it seems like a natural transition, obviously, to when you get good at your practice to then share that with people so that they can start teaching as well. So when did you start building your teacher training program?
So 2021, when there was still a huge long lockdown, it lasted forever. No in-person training was allowed unless it was under educational circumstances. So we would be allowed to do a little teacher training in person, but we wouldn't be allowed to do a normal drop-in yoga class. So that was the rules back then, and my own teacher from my 300-hour training, she's a German Vinyasa teacher that also teaches internationally with a big school, and she and the big school reached out to me if we want to host a training together in our studio. And that's when I kind of first started, because she really took me by her hand. It was really nice because she has like 20 years of experience with educating teachers, and we created a little 50-hour teacher training for people that had already a teacher training but wanted to learn something new and adapt or increase their skills, and that's what we did. That was the first thing that we did. But we haven't had it wasn't under the name of Yoga and Move, it was still under the name of the other school, but it was really nice for me to step into that teacher role.
And how long does it take to build a 50-hour training program? Like, she brought it in with experience, right? So you kind of just learned as you went, because now you have 200 hours course, or is it also 300 hour?
Yeah, we do 200 hour, 300 hour, 50 hour, and shorter trainings. And there it is a long process. Like the whole last year was just developing the program for a 300 hour training. But always it depends on how much work you want to put in. But I'm Virgo, so
I'm a Virgo too. I'm a Virgo too.
Really? High five. I don't know. I would lock myself up for nights and just like write on the book and make it perfect because I wanted it to be really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it takes a while.
Yeah, because I mean, I started dabbling in like building some programs and for the ice bathing, and then also breath work, getting into it. But it just for me, it's like, oh my gosh, the amount of, I'm also kind of a perfectionist. I'm trying to work around that, which is actually the idea of this podcast, is stepping into the unknown a little bit and just doing it and filming it and then putting it on the internet, rather than like planning everything and doing everything so that it's perfect. And actually it's so much lighter and actually in this case more natural. But I think for like an online program or teacher training program, it's very important to be pretty tedious if you want to have good teachers in the end.
Yeah. Plus people pay a lot of money for it, so I think it's something you owe to your students to make it good and give them the best you have to offer.
Yeah, and so you have like workbooks, online trainings, videos, everything?
So our trainings are in person. So we focus on in person because we believe that as a yoga teacher, at least if you want to teach real people, you have to know being with a group, and you have to know how to interact with people, and not just in front of a screen, but rather like in real life. So that's why we focus on in-person groups. And I also think we live in a world where, you know, people getting actually really lonely in front of their screens, kind of being connected with everybody, but still being online just all the time. So I think in the future, honestly, I think we will see more and more the trend going back to in-person trainings, because besides the learning effect, it will also give you so much, you know, health benefits of just being in a group, being with others, being social, and
that's why coming full circle to the beginning of the conversation of community and being together is such a massive part of who we are as humans. And obviously there's online communities and there's people that you can talk to on the internet, but there's nothing like a in-person hug or a high five or something like this, and talking face to face, feeling that person's energy. I wish maybe when you come back from your trip, we can do this again in person so we can talk and get a little bit more intimate on some of the topics. And now is where I transition, because Yoga on the Move is this beautiful dynasty that I'm honored to know the person who's created it, and I'm excited to see where it goes. But I want to talk a little bit about you as well, because you are currently on a journey of your own, and where are you right now?
In Mexico City.
Okay, and what took you there?
So I've been living in Berlin for 10 years and I love it. It's my favorite city in the world. But still, if you are in a place for a really long time, you can reach the boundaries, or at least I did. Yeah. And I felt really an urge to, you know, broaden my horizon and get to know new people, learn from new places, new cultures. And that's why my partner and I decided to, we actually decided that already 3 years back, that we want to do 1 year abroad. Yeah. So we had to prepare it. Obviously, if you're running your own business in a in-person setting like I do, you cannot just leave like that. Yeah. But rather you have to, I wanted to prepare it well so that I can leave with a good feeling and not leaving, you know, a pile of shit behind, so to say. say.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why we prepared it well. And now this year, our plan is to live in 4 to 5 cities around the world, where we will spend 2 to 3 months each. Yeah, just to have a little bit more time in these cities, to understand how life feels there. For me, also to have some teaching opportunities, and also to connect and do stuff that you would just do when you live there.
Yeah, that's so. My partner and I were talking about it the other day, and we were like, "Oh, pre-kids, that would have been such a cool idea." Because with the kids, it's a little bit harder to do, but I think it still could be possible. But we think it's a really, or I think it's a really amazing thing, because that's what I did in the end. I left my city and country to go expand my horizons. I was in a different state of mind than you. I was coming for adventure. I was coming to have fun and maybe fulfill this dream of playing soccer, which I did. But I stayed and I learned. My only goal was to learn the language and to see what the culture is like, because there's some saying, I'll have to find it later, but it's like, if you travel the world and all you do is jump from city to city without eating the food, talking to the people, and like learning about what's going on in those places, then you might as well have just stayed at home. And so 3 months is a long time. Can I ask, do you know where you're headed to next?
Yeah, we have already our apartment booked in New York, so the next stop is New York City.
Oh my gosh. How cool is that? Are you learning Spanish while you're down there?
I am. I started from 0, and I just today finished the A1 level on my Bubble app.
Nice.
So I'm making some progress, but still it's slow. And I wish I would be here longer, honestly, because obviously then you get it way quicker. But I'll try to stick with it. And I also feel I love Mexico City so far, and I feel like it's not the last time I'm here. So I want to keep learning Spanish so that when I return, I'm a little bit better than now.
Yeah, maybe you could teach a class in Spanish.
Yeah, that's my goal for my last week here, that I'm able to teach the sun salutation in Spanish. So
nice. Oh, that's a really cool goal. And have you met anybody so far that you're like, oh, this is what's made it worth it? Like, have you met anyone and learned anything new because of the trip so far?
I mean, every day I meet new people, and what I really enjoy, honestly, is having a lot of time with my partner, because in Berlin we were both like super busy working so much, and now we have both a little bit more time, and we just experience so much, also intense emotions in all directions, but it's so nice, and I feel like I'm meeting him again, which is beautiful. Yeah. But also outside of the relationship, I made already a few but really good friends here in Mexico City, which I'm really glad and happy about. Yeah. And also it's really interesting I'm trying out all the yoga studios basically in Mexico City, so it's really interesting to see what the yoga culture here is like in comparison to Berlin, because it's actually really different. Yeah.
Can you elaborate?
So what I feel for now, I'm not saying that I understood everything, but from my experience so far, I noticed that it's a little bit more physical, like more focused on the asana, and sometimes it feels quite competitive actually on the very physical level. So it's really about like how good can you do the handstand, how good are your back bends, and so on. So the classes here are very advanced on a physical level. And I feel like in Berlin it's a bit more chill. It's a bit more like, oh, whatever, I'm just here to relax and be present, and doing some headstand throughout is nice, but I don't feel that much competition on the asana side of things in Berlin, at least where I am teaching or where I practice.
For the non-yogis like me, what does asana mean?
asana is the physical posture, so to say.
Okay. And what
Yeah.
would be the other side? I guess the spiritual?
So the yoga path is divided in 8 limbs, and asana is just one of it. So
Okay.
there's 7 other things.
Yeah.
It starts with how you put yourself into society, then how you treat yourself,
Oh, wow.
then the physical body, then your meditation, so your mind, your breath, pranayama, and then your focus, or sense reduction, then your focus, and yeah, it goes
Wow.
multiple layers.
Now I can imagine why and how it got so intense for you and how you wanted to live very strictly to the program. Okay.
Yeah.
I get it. And so now you just started, right? So you left about a month ago or 2 months?
We left Berlin before Christmas and
So
arrived in Mexico end of December because we spent holidays with our families, and then the whole January we were just backpacking around. We were visiting a few places in Mexico, Guatemala, and Belize.
wow.
And from end of January onwards, we were really based here in Mexico City and started to build our life here a little bit.
I'll have to connect you with 1 or 2 of my friends in Mexico City. I have a good
Oh,
friend.
yes, please.
Shout out to Yimis. He's a really awesome guy. He's over
Nice.
here. He's over here right now, I think, doing the last Wim Hof Method Poland expedition. But I don't. If he gets back before you leave, I'll connect you two. And there's one
Would love
other.
that.
I think she lives outside of Mexico City. But anyways,
Yeah.
you're headed to New York. You have a few other places around the world. What is after this year? Like, do you have a plan, or are you just kind of gonna let this experience set in and see where it goes?
So I'll definitely go back to Berlin because I have the studio there, and I have to take care also of my life there, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's see where the journey of Yoga on the Move goes. I think I'm also doing this year to, first of all, personally expand my horizon, but also to see how maybe Yoga on the Move can develop and how we can improve what we are offering. That's why I love to visit studios over here and check all around. Plus, maybe I definitely have the dream of one day having like a retreat center, maybe somewhere at the beach. So maybe, I don't know how soon it will be possible to realize that, but it's definitely something that I would work towards one day.
Well, if my partner heard you talk about being close to the beach, she'd be smiling ear to ear. So let's definitely stay in contact over the next decade, I guess we can say, and maybe our paths can cross in that sense, because I know she is, as a marine biologist, not happy in Berlin. So we need to be somewhere near the ocean, not only for that, but also for the soul. Something about the ocean is calling to both her and I. Kind of roll into the end of this podcast, I'd like to ask you if there's anything we missed, if there's anything you want to share that we haven't talked about yet, and tell the people, I guess, and if you've ever seen the YouTube Hot Ones guy, he says, let the people know what you've got going on.
I think we spoke a lot about everything, or a lot about everything, and I'm not sure if we missed anything. I just wanted to thank you again for having me, and also for your kind words throughout this whole podcast. It moves me a lot if whatever we created with Yoga on the Move inspires others, and it makes it means a lot for me. I think essentially this is what we should, if we birth something into the world and we create stuff instead of thinking about the competition all the time, just kind of empowering each other, and also being inspired by what others do. And I think that's really, really beautiful. And I also love to watch your journey from going from the really physical running also through your spiritual journey into breathwork, and I think it's such a great great journey to watch, and I'm super excited for whatever comes.
Yeah.
Maybe we manage to bring an event together one day.
We've been talking about it.
We try it, but
it will happen. It will happen. I'm
happen.
putting it out there as well right now. We're gonna make it happen. And thank you, Marlene, so much for being here. I really loved talking to you, and hope that we can do it again soon. I wish you all the best on this really amazing journey you're on right now, and I cannot wait to see you when you get back.
Likewise, super excited to see you soon, and wish you all the best. Thank you, Noah, for having me.
You're very welcome. Bye, Marlene.
Bye,
Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching. Amazing.